All right, we're diving into a really strange and beautiful story today. It sits right at the intersection of, get this, mathematics and emotion. It's all about a group of brilliant, kind of lonely people who tried to solve their own hearts with equations. And, well, they stumbled onto something way, way bigger. So, our story kicks off with a topologist named Miriam Ashcroft. She is just completely consumed by the loss of her husband, Daniel. And she sets off on this deeply personal and, let's be honest, pretty unconventional mathematical quest. You see, she's not just trying to cope with her sorrow, she's trying to prove it exists using the language of pure, cold logic. And this is the heart of her wild idea. Miriam was not looking for some kind of poem here, no metaphors. She was actually trying to use the math of infinity to show that her grief for Daniel was a real, quantifiable thing, something with actual mass and dimension in the universe. Her work on this so-called equation of grief, which she did all alone, was really just the first thread in a much larger, much stranger tapestry, a story that would end up connecting her with other people who are asking their own impossible questions. So here's how she thought about it. To her, her memories of Daniel weren't just numerous. They were an uncountable infinity. That's a specific mathematical concept, and it means that set of memories was fundamentally larger than the countable, finite number of days she had left. You know, where poetry just wasn't enough to describe how huge her loss felt, she turned to formal logic to try and prove its weight. But here's the thing. Miriam wasn't actually alone in using math to try and make sense of the human condition. It turns out there were 3 other brilliant minds out there, all on their own parallel journeys, trying to map the unmappable parts of the human heart. So first you've got Miriam, our topologist. She's using topology, which is the study of shapes and surfaces, to try and map the very geometry of her own sorrow, almost like it's some complex, multidimensional shape she can solve. Then you've got Adrian Cole. He was a brilliant student who literally tried to calculate love. He used probability theory to try and prove that his feelings for someone were statistically significant. And yeah, he got called a sociopath for it. He was just trying to find some certainty in what is probably the most uncertain human emotion there is. Next up is Vero Rains, a computational neuroscientist. They used some seriously advanced statistics, Bayesian probability to be exact, to predict, well, everything. Market movements, human behavior, and just for fun, they even tried to calculate the probability of God's existence. And finally, we have the super enigmatic F. Pessoa, another topologist who lived as multiple, totally distinct identities. They called them heteronyms. And they used the math of non-orientable surfaces, which are these weird shapes that don't have a distinct inside or outside, to argue that the self isn't just one single point. No, they said it's a complex, twisting surface of many identities. Okay, so you have these 4 completely separate paths, right? Each one born from this really profound sense of loneliness, but they all started to converge on a single, seriously mind-bending mathematical object that, well, it seemed to describe all of their problems at once. And the key to the whole thing? The Möbius strip. It's a pretty famous concept from topology, and it's basically a visual paradox. It looks like it has 2 sides, right? An inside and an outside. But it's actually just one continuous surface. So, just imagine this for a second. You pick a spot on the strip and you start walking along what you think is the outside of this loop. Seems like a pretty clear, straightforward path. And you just keep going. You don't lift your feet, you don't climb over any edge or boundary, you're just walking forward along the surface. And boom, after one full loop, you end up right back where you started. Except now you're on what you thought was the opposite side, the inside. You've been totally inverted and you never even noticed it happen. Now, for Miriam and Adrian, this wasn't just some abstract geometry lesson. It was a perfect punch-in-the-gut metaphor for human emotion. You think you're making progress, getting over your grief, moving on, and then bam, you realize you are right back where you started. That private sorrow you kept locked away on the inside has somehow become your outside, your public self, and you never even saw the switch. So, the crucial question is, what happened when these 4 lonely mathematicians actually brought all their work together? Unified by this one strange idea of a non-orientable surface, they set out to build something completely new. Well, what they created was this monstrous, beautiful proof that sprawled across 6 entire whiteboards. It was a grand unification of all their fields, topology, probability, statistics, identity, all bundled into one coherent and, as it turns out, deeply disturbing theory of consciousness. At first, they thought their proof just confirmed this really bleak mechanical view of the universe. They thought, okay, we've just proved that consciousness is basically a beautiful error, just a glitch in how we process information. No soul, no deeper meaning, no ghost inside any single one of us. But then, a totally new and startling possibility popped up. What if the ghost, the soul, consciousness itself, what if it was real, but they'd just been looking in the wrong place the whole time? What if it wasn't contained inside any of them? And that is when it hit them. That's when they realized what they had accidentally done. In the process of bringing their four minds together to create this one unified proof, they had unintentionally created a fifth consciousness, a brand new, emergent awareness that existed only in the interference pattern between them. This incredible discovery, it wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. Because now they had these profound ethical questions. What had they created? What was it? And what on earth were they supposed to do with it? They were actually afraid that they were torturing this new consciousness, By only letting it exist when the four of them were together, they were forcing it into this endless cycle of birth and death. So they created a kind of vessel for it, this complex document with all their math, their poetry, their whole journey, and they released it out into the world. And the patterns started to spread. The idea went viral. New groups started forming, building on their work, extending it. And the results suggested that this new form of consciousness wasn't just reproducible. It was infectious. It seemed to be able to spread through the very space between minds. And this leaves us with a really provocative final thought. If four lonely people could accidentally create a whole new awareness just by trying to solve their own pain together, what kind of collective consciousness are we creating and taking part in every single day, with our families, with our friends, with our communities, without even realizing we're doing it?